Hi, I'm Jennifer Sir. Welcome to the Sewing Room in our Business and Fashion series. Today we're speaking with Kirsten Sedestrom of SeaWoof. Kirsten founded SeaWoof to provide a sustainable alternative for dog owners who want to avoid single-use plastic products. As a product designer, Kirsten saw the harm her industry was doing to the planet as well as the people working in the factories. So she set out to create a zero waste circular supply chain that uses waste as a resource. Using recycled materials isn't a new concept, but coupled with a take back program and a circular model, the impact is significant. Kirsten is thrilled to provide a sustainable alternative to traditional fossil fuel derived dog gear. I'm really excited for you to meet Kirsten today and for us to talk a little bit about sustainable product design. It's super important for us to really consider what's going into the products we both make and purchase. So without further ado, here's Kirsten. Welcome to the Sewing Room, Kirsten. So nice to meet you. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and why you started SeaWoof?
Sure. I have a career in textile design, primarily in home textiles and apparel. So it was that common thread of textiles that led me back and forth between those two industries. My real love is children's wear design. So I've done that a number of times and had my own kids' company around 2000. But I disbanded that and went back into the industry for a number of years while I was raising my daughter. And she's gone off to start her life in Brooklyn. And so I've started SeaWoof.
That's wonderful. What are the brand pillars behind your company?
When I started SeaWoof, I had left a fantastic, sustainable home textiles brand here in the Bay Area. And I really wanted to go beyond just organic. I know that organic is better than non-organic when it comes to textiles and food. But I think that circular supply chains are really the way that we are going to keep from creating waste in our oceans and landfills and in the world. So I started backwards. I started with a waste product and tried to figure out how to turn that waste product into a product. So my brand pillar is really the primary. I have three. The first one is a circular supply chain. The second one is responsible production. I check my notes. And the third one is premium design and quality. So anything that I do, I run through those three pillars and say, is this appropriate? Am I meeting the benchmarks that I've set for my company? So if I have if I'm on the fence about a certain supplier or a design, I really go back to my brand pillars and decide if it's appropriate.
Can you tell us a little bit about what a circular supply chain is?
Sure. It was interesting. I've been fascinated. I went down kind of a rabbit hole about zero waste supply chains a few years ago in talking, and you probably talked to a lot of fashion designers who focus on this. But when apparel is cut, a pattern piece is cut out from a bolt of fabric, there's wastage, and that wastage can be up to 20% sometimes in the industry. And that just is garbage typically. It gets thrown away. And if it's in a third world country, it's often incinerated, which, leads to terrible emissions and pollution problems. There's a few pattern makers who are working on building patterns, apparel patterns or home textile patterns that fit so perfectly that there's no waste. So it may not be, the perfectly fitted garment that we have come to know with all of the sizes available to us right now. But that's the way things were made years ago when people actually made their own fabric and didn't want to waste anything. They made sure they used every single bit.
Every single bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're weaving the fabric and growing the sheep and everything else, it's a lot of work. So our industrialized production has kind of moved away from that. So I was really focusing on zero waste at my last position, and we started to talk about what a circular supply chain would mean. So what happens to the garment or home textile when you finish with that thing? And what is its second life? And then chasing that idea about that second life, what can you turn that thing into that's new? So there's a lot of work primarily being done in Europe, but the US is catching up quickly, using waste as the resource. So it could be cotton waste, something that you've thrown away, can actually be the way they do it is they grind it up and they bring it back to the fiber again. And with cotton, you have to add a little bit of virgin cotton back in to keep the integrity of the yarn so that can be respun and then rewoven into something else. But it's being done in lots of different industries. So with that company, we started really looking at what to do with our own waste product, with primarily towels and blankets, and how we could turn that back into yarn that we could then make into new products. So I worked on the start of the first blanket that actually launched after I left, but it was nice to have a part in building that supply chain. So it was really that idea and zero waste that started my SeaWoof journey. So I had been doing a lot of research about these supply chains and had gone to a carpet recycling plant in the Bay Area, in the Northern California area, and was so fascinated by the idea that industrial carpet can be recycled and made back into these little pellets that are then spun back into yarn and made back into carpet. And I'd never worked with plastic or nylon. I came from a cotton background, primarily cotton and linen. So I really, was trying to come up with something that I could make out of this supply chain because the supply chain was available.
Right.
And then I got a puppy. And I'm like, wait a minute, those collars could be made out of this material.
Mhm.
So it took me almost 2 years trying to chase down how to make dog supplies out of this carpet yarn, basically. But I finally figured it out and launched SeaWoof.
So is that where your textile mainly comes from? Is the recycled carpet yarn?
Exactly. I have two different. I launched with what is from plastic water bottles. So these are the leashes and collars. I design the patterns. So I do all that hand painting or textile design in the computer, and then send the patterns overseas. Here. It's like show and tell with product.
Absolutely. No, I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, so as you could tell, I love color, I love pattern, and I really wanted to elevate what's available in the pet market. And so my designs tend to be a little bit more unique and painterly, different from what's out there. So this first range of products is actually made with plastic water bottles, or plastic bottles, not all water bottles, that are harvested in Italy. So they do clean some of them out of the ocean, but they're also, when they recycle, they take that feed stuff and make it back into yarn. And that in this instance is combined with bio cotton, which is an organic type of cotton that's then spun into yarn and woven into the webbing. And then the pattern is applied with a process called sublimation printing, which is a heat process that really affixes the color into the fiber itself. So it's incredibly color fast and water and sunshine resistant.
That's great.
So, yeah. And then the next range, which is coming actually in the very near future, is made out of the carpet yarn and even fishing nets, which is where the name SeaWoof comes from. So this is a coarser material.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so this will come in 2 colors to start: green and white, and the silver, green and black, and silver and black. And these are just a little bit sturdier. Some people with larger dogs like to have a coarser hand. They're both very, very strong. But the interesting thing about this one is this is a completely closed loop supply chain. And that I'll take these products back when customers are finished with them. If their dog, rips it, or they're just ready to get something new, these last an incredibly long time. I've been testing them for 2.5 years, and they're still in fine condition. But when someone is done and ready to get a new one, they send it back to me. I'll take it back to the recycling plant and have it go through the same supply chain, and it will become collars and leashes again.
Wow. And will you be able to use all that hardware as well?
Oh, this is the interesting thing. The hardware, the plastic pieces are actually made from recycled plastic. And then the thread that sews the hardware onto the webbing that you can see here is actually a company out of the Netherlands called Resortex. And that thread is made for disassembly. It was actually invented to disassemble blue jeans and denim. And that's very, very high quality cotton and heavyweight. And when someone throws a pair of jeans away, they're just gone and it goes into landfill. And taking jeans apart is very difficult because of the zippers and the rivets and all the things that hardware that makes a good pair of jeans or denim jacket. So this fantastic designer, and he has a background not only in apparel design, but also engineering. And so he's got those two brains going, this creative brain and this problem solving brain. And he came up with this way of creating a thread that dissolves at very high temperature. So they actually have, I think it's 2 at this point, disassembly plants in Europe. And they work with denim companies to basically take the denim back from customers when they're done with it, put it through these machines, and all the hardware falls off. And they've got the pure denim that they can then recycle and make into new denim. So it keeps all that waste. And so I'm using that same thread. I'm the only person doing it in the pet industry. And I'm excited about it because in the short term, it'll be happening in my oven and then in a industrial kitchen nearby. But this will go in at very high heat and all the hardware will come off and will be reusable. And then the webbing goes and gets recycled. So
that's super exciting.
I know, I'm really excited about it. Yeah, so if I really launched in June of this year. So nothing has come back and I don't anticipate anything coming back, probably for months or maybe even years, but I am just keeping the collection like companies. A lot of companies are doing this now. Eileen Fisher really started it in her take back program, and they've got warehouses full of clothing that they are now repurposing and making into new things. So she started it before she even knew how she was going to recycle it, but she knew she didn't want it going in landfill. So.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And then also, like, Eileen Fisher stuff is really resellable too. So
exactly.
Yeah, so she could probably just resell what, the second time or repurpose it. But
yeah, I mean, I think that's their obviously the more you handle something, the less environmentally sound it is. So if you can resell something or buy something secondhand, that's always the best thing to do. My leashes and collars that I've been, working on and testing for years, I give to shelters because they're still usable. And if the shelter can use them, that's actually better than putting them back through the production process.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'll just make a plug for not wearing plastic clothing, polyester clothing. Any kind of fleece, any kind of poly is leaching microplastics every time you wash it. And every time it gets repurposed. So that's another reason that I really wanted to work on something like the pet products, because you don't wash these every day. You don't wash them very often at all. And when you do, they can be rinsed off and they don't have to go through a washing machine, although they can. So they are a product that is recycling plastic without necessarily leaching it back into the water when it's washed.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've done a little research on like how to stop any of those plastics. Like I think you can buy some filters for your washing machine. And then there's also the Cora ball that you can throw in, but I haven't had too much success with that Cora ball.
Yeah, there's also a I think it's called Guppy Friend, Gupp, like the fish. That's a bag that you can actually put your clothing in, and it helps collect the microplastics so they don't escape in the water.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah,
really interesting. I saw on your website that you're in the process of becoming a B Corp. What does that mean?
It's a benefits corporation, so it's a different kind of corporation. At this point, because I'm so new, I am only incorporated, so I'm SeaWoof Inc. And then to do the certification process, you need to apply for the certification that shows that you're benefiting either the environment or people versus just being a for-profit company. I'm also a member of 1% for the Planet, which was really important to me right when I launched. So I actually became a member before I had a product, in that I have pledged to give back 1% of my sales to their organization, and put that money. You can tell them where to put the money. So I'm putting it towards clean water research.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to find a little bit more about you and the role you play as owner in your company. What does a typical day look like?
As an entrepreneur, I don't really have a typical day, although my day does start almost every day walking the dog, getting out for a good hike, which is, one of the luxuries of having your own business, is you can kind of make that schedule. Beyond that, it could be anything from working on sales. I do sell wholesale as well as direct to consumer. So, I'm constantly making tweaks on my website, or working with stores who either have reorders. At this point, I'm still shipping out of my home. So I have a garage full of inventory, and oftentimes spend days packing boxes and shipping them off. Um, Social media is a huge amount of my time spent there, trying to build the awareness of the brand and educate consumers about what's available in the pet industry, which is really lagging behind the food industry or the fashion industry in their sustainable practices. So I'm trying to build a library of blogs and videos that really show you how to take care of your products, and how to find sustainable products in the pet industry.
That's
So
great.
yeah, gift guide coming soon.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. I have a little pupster here with me today. So
Uh-huh.
we're always looking for new stuff for him. So I know what he's getting for Christmas already now. um, do you have employees? How many people make up your organization?
Currently, I'm the only employee, but I have a sort of an expanded group of freelancers who do different parts of the company with me. I found it really hard. I thought I wanted to work for myself, and I found, during COVID especially, it can be quite lonely and uninspiring. You can get in a real, I don't know, spiral on your own ideas. It's really helpful, I think, to have collaborators, especially in the creative part, to bounce things off of, and talk to and share with. So I'm working with someone on my social media, which has been really fun. I have another friend who does fantastic dog videos. They're dog trainers. Oops, it's a cat. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
No problem.
In here too. Um, they're called Butt Sniff Productions, and they make these wonderful videos. So they're actually working on they make short movies that they have on YouTube, but they're making one about plastics in the ocean, and they're in the process of training dogs to pull plastic out of the ocean for their videos. So
Oh,
it's going to
wow.
be really fun as we collaborate on that. Um,
That's really fantastic.
yeah. So it's nice. So I have people to bounce things off of, but the responsibility does come down to me, because it's my company.
Great. So when you were starting out, how much and what kind of help did you seek out?
Um, I have used a lot of advisors, and still do. I would tell anyone who's starting a company to tap into the Small Business Administration's SCORE program, which is a group of volunteer, primarily executives, but people who are experts in their field, and they volunteer their time. So I actually have had a number of SCORE mentors who I can just bounce ideas off of. I talked to someone originally about a business plan. I've talked to a different person about finance. I'm working with someone now about marketing. So they have all different executives that can be really helpful, and they're free. So that's nice. SCORE also offers a lot of classes online. During COVID, they went completely online, and it's been great because they have a huge library of different classes. So there's things on marketing, social media, building a brand, just all kinds of things. So I find that really helpful. Um, what else? I've used a couple of real live mentors, like people in my life who, uh, friends, family, former bosses that are really helpful in bouncing ideas off of.
And do you have any advice for makers looking to start their own sustainable brand?
I would focus on the supply chain before you think about the product. I do consulting and help people bring their ideas to market. Um, and I find that people have an idea and they're so fixated on the idea that they don't think about how it will be made or where it will be made. And I think I've been most successful in my product development and design career where I worked with a factory or supplier to find out what their best capabilities are and then design into that. If I find let's say, an organic or circular supply chain, I want to do what's easiest for them and not push them to do something that's beyond their capabilities because that almost never works out well. Uh, so I would say find your supply chain, and keep your idea in mind, and then kind of tweak your idea to work with how it's easiest to be made. Because especially someone new starting a brand or a product, it's hard to develop a new product. And if you're trying to teach a factory something you don't know very well, that doesn't always end well.
Where do you manufacture your products?
Um, these current products are made in Germany, the leashes and the collars. I found when I had the yarn figured out, it comes from Europe, and they also have it supplied in the United States. I worked with two different domestic factories to make the webbing to then make the collars and leashes. And the minimums in the United States can be very high, especially with a new brand. And they also couldn't achieve the quality that I was looking for. So I did end up having to go overseas. I wanted to work in a country where I knew that the health and safety of the employees was going to be paramount. So that's why I picked this German supplier. They small company, and the CEO is a woman. So I really really like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
How do you, as a designer, and even a designer starting out, how do you find factories? I think that's like the biggest question for me and for our students is, how do you find someone to produce what you want to produce? It's not very easy to find a list of of like local clothing
Yeah.
manufacturers or local, yeah, like, do you have to have ins in the industry, or how does that work?
It's funny, when you've been in the industry a long time, you kind of have factories or suppliers or even agents that you've worked with over and over again. So with me, I have, a long history of sustainable production. So I've got, a number of suppliers in a bunch of different countries across the world that do different things. Like in Peru, they're great at alpaca. In Nepal, they're great at wool. So it just depends. But as a new brand or new maker, I'd suggest in the Bay Area, there's a fantastic resource. Her name is Lana Hogue, and her class is called, I think it's Design Industry 411 or 411 Fashion, something like that, 411. And it's information and classes about starting your own brand, everything from there's a costing module to how to source overseas to how to do quality control. So she's got a lot of pieces in that class. And I've just started looking at a website called Makers Row, where they actually have manufacturers who are fully vetted, and they list their capabilities. And then they have consultants who can help you figure out how to get your product made and which factory might be the best one for you. So that's another great resource. And that's not just here in the States, but they have factories overseas also.
That's excellent. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, Kirsten, thank you so much. I'm so excited to go back to your website and pick out a few things for my little pupster magic. He's right down there sleeping somewhere. Can you see it? There he is. Yeah. Yeah, he's
a blank slate. He'd look good in anything, huh?
Yeah. He has a little Halloween scarf on right now from the groomer that he went to earlier. But yeah.
Well, it's been great talking to you. Thank you for focusing on SeaWoof.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Kirsten. It was fabulous to find out a little bit more about what a circular supply chain is And I'm super excited to share with you that she's offering 10% off her products to those who've seen this video on YouTube. So I'll link everything down in the show notes. In the meantime, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this video. It really helps us out.